The idea was to document the resilience of life in a place defined by its turmoil, Eastern Congo. The name itself conjures images of dense jungle, rare minerals, and endless conflict. It's a place that many outsiders only know through grim headlines and harrowing statistics. But I wanted to see beyond the news reports. I was drawn by the stories of people who build lives, raise families, and find moments of joy amidst the chaos. The plan seemed straightforward enough: travel to a bustling town, meet the locals, and capture the texture of their everyday existence. I knew the risks, of course. I had read the travel advisories and the reports from human rights organizations. It was a journey into one of the world's most complex and dangerous regions. Our journey began with a sense of cautious optimism. Flying into the region, you are struck by the sheer, breathtaking beauty of the landscape. The earth is a vibrant, chaotic green, stretching as far as the eye can see. Rolling hills give way to towering volcanoes, their peaks often shrouded in mist. From the air, it looks like a paradise, a land untouched by the troubles that plague its people. On the ground, this initial impression was reinforced by the rhythm of daily life. Markets were filled with the chatter of vendors and the bright colors of fresh produce. Children in school uniforms laughed and played on their way home. It was easy for a moment to forget where you were. It was easy to believe that the danger was somewhere else, just over the next hill or deep in the jungle. But the signs of conflict are never far away. They are woven into the very fabric of this place, subtle but persistent. You see it in the high-walled compounds topped with barbed wire, a common feature even for modest homes. You see it in the ubiquity of men in uniform, their presence a constant reminder of the fragile security situation. You see it in the way conversations quiet down when a stranger approaches, a collective instinct for caution, honed by decades of instability. It's a place where a seemingly normal street scene can hide a multitude of unseen risks, where the line between peace and violence is impossibly thin. The people here have learned to navigate this reality with a grace and strength that is truly humbling. This duality was what I had come to explore. How does one live a normal life when the abnormal is always lurking just beneath the surface? The people we met were warm and welcoming, eager to share their stories. They spoke of their hopes for their children, their frustrations with the political situation, and their deep love for their homeland. There was a sense of profound resilience, a determination to carry on despite the immense challenges. It was a powerful and moving experience. But as we would soon discover, in a place like Eastern Congo, even the act of listening and observing can be misinterpreted. Our journey into the heart of daily life was about to take a terrifying turn. The moment it all changed began with something utterly ordinary. We were filming in a busy marketplace, a vibrant scene full of life and energy. The sun was high, casting sharp shadows across the dusty ground. I was speaking with a woman who sold brightly colored fabrics, her stall a beacon of defiance against the drabness of the surrounding buildings. Our camera operator was capturing the scene, panning across the stalls piled high with everything from dried fish to mobile phone chargers. The sounds of bartering, laughing, and the distant hum of a generator filled the air. It felt like we were finally capturing the essence of the place, the resilience, the commerce, the simple act of people getting on with their lives. It was exactly the kind of footage we had hoped for. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. It was a subtle change at first, a ripple of unease that spread through the crowd. People who had been smiling and waving at the camera now averted their gazes. A man in a faded football shirt, who had been enthusiastically explaining the rules of a local board game, quietly packed up and left. The noise of the market seemed to dim, replaced by a tense silence, and I looked at our fixer, a local man with years of experience navigating these situations, and saw a flicker of concern in his eyes. He gave a slight shake of his head, a silent signal that it was time to stop. We had overstayed our welcome. The invisible line had been crossed. Before we could pack up our equipment, two men in plain clothes approached us. They were not in uniform, but they carried themselves with an unmistakable air of authority. Their faces were stern, their eyes missing the warmth we had grown accustomed to. One of them spoke in rapid Swahili to our fixer, his voice low and firm. He gestured towards our camera. The word espionage was spoken, and it hung in the air like a physical threat. All the research, all the warnings, all the abstract dangers I had read about had just become terrifyingly real. A simple act of filming was being framed as an act of spying. Our fixer tried to reason with them, showing them our permits, explaining that we were journalists making a documentary, but it was no use. The men were not interested in explanations. They were operating on a different set of assumptions, a logic born from a world of suspicion and betrayal. They ordered us to hand over our equipment and passports. The crowd that had been so friendly just moments before now kept a safe distance, watching the scene unfold with a mixture of fear and curiosity. We were isolated, surrounded, and completely at their mercy. The heart of our journey had just stopped beating, and a new, terrifying chapter had begun. The journey into detention was not a single dramatic event, but a slow, disorienting process. It began with a long walk from the marketplace to a small, nondescript building that served as a local security office. The two men who had stopped us walked on either side, their presence a silent and effective deterrent against any thought of protest or escape. The sun beat down, and the familiar sounds of the town now seemed distant and alien, as if we were moving through a separate reality. Inside the office, we were told to sit on a rickety wooden bench. The room was sparse, with peeling paint on the walls and a single, buzzing fluorescent light overhead. The air was thick with the smell of dust and stale cigarette smoke. Our initial interrogation was a confusing affair. A higher-ranking official, a man with a weary face and a neatly pressed uniform, was brought in to question us. He sat behind a large, cluttered desk, examining our passports with intense scrutiny. He spoke in French, his questions a strange mix of the bureaucratic and the accusatory. Who were we? Why were we here? Who sent us? He leafed through our permits, dismissing them with a wave of his hand. He seemed convinced that we were something other than what we claimed to be. Our fixer tried his best to translate and smooth things over, but his usual confidence had been replaced by a visible anxiety. Every answer we gave seemed only to deepen their suspicion. After hours of questioning that led nowhere, we were moved. This became a recurring pattern over the next few days. We were escorted from one office to another, from one branch of the security services to the next. Each move was accompanied by a fresh wave of uncertainty. We were taken to the regional headquarters of the intelligence agency, a more imposing and intimidating building surrounded by a high wall. Here, the questions were repeated by different men in different rooms, each one trying to catch us in a contradiction. Our equipment was scrutinized, our footage played and replayed, our notebooks examined page by page. We were being passed up a chain of command, our situation growing more serious with each step. The process was designed to disorient and intimidate, and it was brutally effective. We were separated from our fixer for long periods, leaving us to navigate the interrogations with our own limited French. The lack of information was a form of psychological torture. No one would tell us what we were being charged with or how long we would be held. We were simply told to wait. We were caught in the gears of a bureaucratic machine that we did not understand, a machine that operated on its own opaque logic. The initial fear of our confrontation in the market was slowly being replaced by a gnawing dread, a sense that we were sinking into a situation from which there might be no easy escape. Detention was not a cell with bars, at least not at first. It was a series of waiting rooms, back offices, and eventually a small guarded guest house. But honestly, the lack of physical restraints did little to lessen the feeling of being trapped. The days just bled into one another, marked only by the changing angles of the sun through a dusty window and the delivery of meals, usually a plate of rice and beans. Time itself seemed to warp and slow down. Minutes felt like hours, and hours felt like days. We were in a state of suspended animation, our lives put on hold, while faceless officials somewhere else decided our fate. The silence was the worst part, a heavy, suffocating blanket that left too much room for the imagination to run wild. Anxiety became a constant companion. a low hum beneath the surface of every moment. Every footstep in the hallway, every knock on the door, sent a jolt of adrenaline through my body. Was this it? Were they coming to release us, or to move us to a real prison? The uncertainty was a relentless torment. We tried to keep our spirits up, talking about anything and everything other than our situation. We recounted stories from our past, debated the merits of films we had seen, and made dark jokes that honestly just fell flat in the stifling air. But the fear was always there, lurking in the pauses between sentences, reflected in each other's tired eyes. We were utterly powerless, and the knowledge of that powerlessness was a heavy weight. Communication with the outside world was non-existent. Our phones had been taken away, along with everything else in our pockets. We were cut off, isolated not just from our families and colleagues, but from the entire world. We had no way of knowing if anyone knew what had happened to us, if the embassy had been contacted, or if a search was underway. We were ghosts in the system. This isolation amplified the fear, creating a sense of being utterly alone in our predicament. We were two foreigners in a deeply troubled part of the world, held by suspicious officials who saw us not as journalists, but as potential spies or mercenaries. Hope was a flicker, easily extinguished by the long, quiet hours of waiting. During this time, we learned to read the moods of our guards. A small gesture, a shared cigarette, or a brief sympathetic smile could feel like a monumental victory, a sign that we were still seen as human. We clung to these small moments of connection, desperate for any indication that our situation was not hopeless. We learned that one of the junior officers had a young son who loved football, and we would talk to him about the Premier League. It was a way of building a fragile bridge across the vast gulf that separated us. It was a survival tactic. We were no longer just observers. We were participants in a complex and dangerous game, trying to find a way to endure until the waiting finally ended. The end came as suddenly and inexplicably as the beginning. After days that felt like an eternity, an official we had never seen before entered our room. He was a man who carried an air of final authority. He spoke calmly, without any of the accusatory tone we had grown used to. He informed us that there had been a misunderstanding. Our papers were in fact in order. We were free to go. There was no apology, no detailed explanation, just a simple statement that it was over. He handed back our passports and our equipment, cautioned us to be more discreet in the future, and then he was gone. We were escorted to the gate of the compound and left standing on the dusty road, blinking in the bright afternoon sun. The feeling was not one of elation, but of profound disorientation. We were free, but the experience had left its mark. The world outside the compound walls looked the same, but we saw it differently now. Every uniformed man we passed sent a shiver of unease down my spine. The sound of a vehicle slowing down nearby made me flinch. The vibrant, chaotic energy of the streets, which had once seemed so full of life, now felt fraught with potential danger. We had been given a glimpse behind the curtain, a raw and unfiltered look at the power dynamics that govern life in a conflict zone. The thin veneer of normality had been stripped away, revealing the arbitrary and often brutal reality that lay just beneath. The lesson from this terrifying journey is a simple yet profound one. In places destabilized by years of conflict and suspicion, the rules are different. An action that seems innocent in one context can be interpreted as a grave threat in another. Our camera, a tool for storytelling and connection, became a symbol of espionage. Our curiosity, the driving force of our work, was seen as a cover for something more sinister. We had underestimated how deep the paranoia runs in a society that has been betrayed time and again, both by outsiders and by its own leaders. We learned that good intentions are no defense when you are caught in the crosshairs of a conflict you do not fully understand. Looking back, the experience serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of safety and the unpredictability of travel in the world's forgotten corners. It is a story about more than just a brief, frightening detention. It is about the immense gap between our perception of a place and its complex reality. The people of Eastern Congo live with this uncertainty every single day, navigating a world where a trip to the market or a conversation with a stranger can have life-altering consequences. We were lucky. We had passports from a powerful country and the support of an organization that could work behind the scenes. We got to leave. For millions of others, this perilous labyrinth is not a temporary ordeal.